this for the Episcopalian Church. The music director likes it. He likes Old Testament stuff.
Now it's still waiting to go. Good morning, all. Shana Tova and Good Yontif. It's a pleasure to have all of you with us as we observe Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. My name is Rabbi Matt Berger, and I'm joined today on the bima with our soloist Allison Rosoff and with Lowell Adams, our cellist for this morning, cellist with the Florida Orchestra. He has been playing here during Yom Kippur for 37 years. So that is quite a long time, all the way back to the late 80s or so. We are going to be praying from Mishkan HaNefesh, which is the sanctuary or dwelling place of the soul. This is our Machzor or High Holy Day prayer book. You'll be able to follow along with the slides on the screen, whether you're in the sanctuary or at home. And our opening song is going to be Hashivenu, Return Again.
Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are. Shuvah, Shuvah. Kadesh, Kadesh, Yaminu Kikeitem.
In the prayer book, we're on page 135. Feel free to join me. We thank you, living and eternal one, for morning light, for the breath within us, for strength and life renewed. Now it opens before us this Sabbath of Sabbaths, gift of spacious contemplation, mirror for the soul. May we see our lives reflected in this still clear pool, a day apart, unhurried time, an undivided mind. Give us joy in this day that Israel shares. Give us presence and attention, clear vision, a learning heart. We wake to the morning, we open our eyes, we breathe your name. Ma Tovu, how beautiful are your tents, is found on page 138.
Oh, hallelujah.
continue together on page 142, a blessing for learning. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kichanu b'mitzvotav v'tivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, supreme power of the universe. You sanctify our lives with mitzvot and give us the sacred obligation of learning and living Torah. A prayer for our bodies and our health, Asher Yatzar, is found on 157. The gift of honor. Ben Azai used to say, treat no one with scorn, regard nothing as useless, for all people have their moment, and all things have their place. Diamonds, when found in the ground, may look like worthless pieces of glass. It takes an expert to see the precious gem that is hidden within. Become an expert in human beings. Learn to see each one as a diamond in the rough. Baruch atah Adonai rofeh chol basar umafli la'asot. Blessed are you, God, who performs the miracles of creation and healing. Continue on 167 with David's song of praise. Adonai, my sovereign God, I praise your name. Boundless is your glory. Compassionate and full of grace, deeply patient, gentle and just. Each generation sings of you, forever tells your story. Goodness and mercy extend to all, hands open wide to nourish life. I celebrate your faithful love. Joyful forever, we sing to you. Continue with words of praise, the Hatzi Kaddish, that you'll find on page 176. prayer for creation. Like an unbroken current, energy streams from the source, bathing the planet in light, calling forth life, movement, mind unfolding from matter, the power to love. And we offer it back to you, our own creative energy, ever dreaming, building, shaping patterns out of chaos, searching out light in the darkness. Creation never ceases, not for an instant. All life is aglow with your light. All things draw sustenance from the source. Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot. Our praise to you, Adonai, creator of the lights of heaven. And on the theme of love, page 183. You love us by helping us grow. You give us Torah, a ladder for the soul. Words that draw us upward. Every mitzvah an invitation to climb. Forge and kiln and crucible to purify our hearts. You give us Torah. You love us by helping us grow. Bring us in peace from the four corners of the earth. Lead us with upright pride to the land that is ours. For you are a God of miracles and wonders. From all the peoples of the earth you sought us out and brought us near to your great enduring truth. So with love we acknowledge and proclaim you are one. Baruch atah Adonai habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Our praise to you, Adonai. You have singled out your people Israel with love. Continue chanting the words of the V'ahavta, also from the Torah, on page 188 and 191. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha Hayom alevavecha, vishinantam levanecha, vidibarta bam, vishiftecha bevetecha, uvlechtecha vaderech, uvshokbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot ayadecha, ve'ayuletotafot beinenecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot betecha, Uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim leloechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Words of truth and faith, emet ve'emunah, are found on page 192. True and steadfast is this teaching, beloved and treasured, a source of wonder, a fount of goodness, a thing of beauty, and ours for all time. And true it is, the eternal God is our sovereign, the rock of Jacob, our protecting shield. Through all generation, God's name lives on. God's throne stands firm. God's dominion prevails. God's grandeur and faithfulness endure through eternity. God's words are precious. They will live forever. Our Song of Freedom, Mi Chamocha, found on 196.
Mi chamocha b'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, no radinot osef eleh, shira chadasha, shebeguyulim lishimcha tzavat hayam, yachad kulam hodu vimlechu ve'amiru, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael, blessed are you in our lives, eternal one, who redeemed Israel. It's now my pleasure to call upon our temple president, Ed Mark, for some high holiday message.
On behalf of our board of directors, I bring holiday greetings to all of you, the members of Temple Shalom. I'd far rather shake hands with you or being who I am. See if that works better. On behalf of the board of directors, I bring holiday greetings to everybody, the members of Temple Ahavat Shalom. I'd far rather shake hands with you, or being the person I am, throw around some hugs, because I'm that kind of guy. But again this year, we live in the land of live streaming, masks and social distancing, as well as the land of apples and honey. Wow, what a year it's been. We've had the good, our new rabbi, spending more time together with family, and the not so good, COVID and its restrictions, searing heat, even for Florida, torrential rains, and even heavier than usual, political battling that seems to go on and on and on and on, and now me. I want to bring you up to date on things at Temple Ahavat Shalom. Despite the pandemic, through hard work of Rabbi Matt and the entire staff and the board, plus financial help through the PPP, the government program, the loan program, we're in pretty good shape financially. By cutting spending, we've been able to make up for the difficulties of many of our members, and despite reduced income, we balanced the budget for the fiscal year just ended. Our new management program is up and running, and this is a reminder to log on. Get your password if you haven't done it. You can pay your dues and keep in touch with us through ShulCloud. Our membership is holding its own. We have about 435 member family units. That's the same number that we had last year. You have adopted a new set of bylaws for the governance of Ahavat Shalom to determine how we put our ideals into action as a board and as a congregation. We're already well into the process of the first revisions to respond to comments that a number of you have made. We'll have a special membership meeting coming up fairly soon in order to consider whether to adopt those. Anita and I joined Temple Ahavat Shalom in 2010 while we were still snowbirds in the area. We found a second Jewish home here after belonging to our Cincinnati congregation since we married in 1965. I hope you realize what a close, cohesive congregation we have, even though we're separated today. I'm sure that this warmth will survive our present separation. And paraphrasing the Passover Seder, next year in Palm Harbor, I hope. Here's one key to our growth. Jews by nature are warm and welcoming people, and we here at TAS love to welcome the stranger into our midst. just as we love the old-timers. There are many unaffiliated Jews in our area, a tremendous number of them, and I'd like to ask that you invite them, if you know any, to tune in virtually while we're still separated, or invite them to come firsthand to a Shabbat service so that they can experience Temple Ahavat Shalom's friendliness firsthand. Speaking of warm and welcoming, there is none better than my predecessor, Rick Katzif, and I want to thank him for all his work, and the thanks of all of us for taking 3 years out of his life to steer the TAS bus through a period of tremendous change under pandemic conditions. Rick is the embodiment of the word mensch. Oliver Wendell Holmes once said, taxes are the price we pay for a civilized society. I know of no society more civilized than that of Temple Ahavat Shalom. It's a kahal kodesh, a blessed congregation or gathering, a community. It's my job as your president to talk about the taxes we pay to be members here. That price comes by many different names, but in this season, I'd like to talk to you about the sacred commitment we ask of ourselves at this time of year, what we sometimes call our High Holy Day Pledge. In normal years, this is the time when volunteers come down the aisle and pass out cards. Those, in these pandemic days, those cards have been mailed to you. The funds we raise through this pledge are vital to Temple Ahavat Shalom. In some synagogues, there is no High Holy Days appeal, but dues are much higher. The fact is that regardless of how we tax ourselves, we have to pay salaries for our staff, for heat in the winter and air conditioning the other 360 days of our Florida year. We have to keep mowing the lawn and lighting the building and ensuring this very special place, and none of that is free. And so it is that a few times a year, your president becomes the senior schnorrer and asks you to be as generous as possible. I want to assure you that we aren't wasting a penny. I'm intimately familiar with some other congregations, one of them almost the same size as ours. It has 2 rabbis, a rabbinic intern, and 2 cantorial soloists. We have 1 rabbi and 1 primary cantorial soloist. That congregation has an office staff of 5 people plus an executive director. We have 1 full-time and 1 half-time office staff. They have 5 people on their building staff. We have 2. I want to tell you that I'll match the devotion and the efficiency and competence of our staff to theirs any day of the week. This is a really wonderful congregation, but we as its members must keep our support in good order. The building needs maintenance ongoing. Our staff needs to keep current with inflation and be rewarded for all their hard work. They're totally devoted to us. After services are over, will you please dig out that card if you haven't done so already and either mail it back to us, or better still, use ShulCloud. Make the largest commitment you can without hurting your own family and its needs. Send the card back to the office, or better still, use that portal and pay your pledge. Make your pledge and your payment, your first payment, online. Feel comfortable then that you've helped to assure that your congregation is inscribed in its own book for the new year. Well, that's the end of my commercial. I want to say a word of thanks to Rabbi Matt, who 15 months ago came to a new city, a new congregation, and a new campus that was empty. Somehow he's managed to meet many of us in person and many of us online. He's gotten to know us on a personal basis, even though he's never seen many of us face to face. Rabbi Klein's legacy remains alive at Temple Ahavat Shalom. But with his help, Rabbi Klein's help, Rabbi Matt has become the new heart of this temple. Anita and I want to wish both rabbis, and Ida, Meital, and Avi, and each member of the Ahavat Shalom family our very best hopes for a Shana Tova, a good and sweet and healthy year.
Thank you so much, Ed, for your kind words, for your stewardship and leadership of the congregation. And also thank you to Rick Katzif. I'm sure you're watching at home with Elisa. Thank you for your guidance during the first year of my tenure here. We'll continue our service with the tefillah as we stand before God. I'll ask all of us to rise. The tefillah begins on page 198 and continues on even pages for those with a prayer book.
Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Agita Hilatecha. Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Agita Hilatecha. Oh God, open up my lips as I begin to pray. Oh God, open up my lips as I begin to pray. Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Agita Hilatecha. Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Agita Hilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov תגיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל תרב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מחכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומחיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל.
Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with Unatana Tochef, a powerful prayer talking about the importance and holiness of this day. You'll find the liturgy on page 208. Our sovereign God of pardon and forgiveness, let these words of sanctity ascend to you. Let us proclaim the power of this day, a day whose holiness awakens deepest awe and inspires highest praise for your dominion. For your throne is a throne of love, your reign is a reign of truth. Emet kiatahu dayan, in truth you are judge and plaintiff, counselor and witness. You inscribe and seal, you record and recount. You remember all that we have forgotten. And when you open the book of memories, it speaks for itself. For every human hand leaves its mark, an imprint like no other. And so a great shofar will cry, Tikiyah, and a still small voice will be heard. Angels in a world of fear and trembling will say, behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes, even they are not blameless. All who come into the world pass before you like sheep before their shepherd. As a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds, you decide destiny, you inscribe judgments.
Rosh Hashanah yekatevun, uvyom Som Kippur yekatevun. Rosh Hashanah yekatevun, uvyom Som Kippur yekatevun.
Feel free to join me on 2:13, the power of this day. An empty page, an open book. A day of ultimate questions. Will I still be here next year at this time with the loved ones I love beside me? What is in store for my family and what will become of my friends? Who will have reason to celebrate? Who will contend with grief? New love, new babies, marriages deepening or breaking apart, prosperity, struggle, reversals of fortune, illness, and health await us. Who will be missing when we gather next? Who will stand apart? Who will be estranged? And who will have joined us, enriching our community? On the edge of the unknown, we tremble. What lies ahead for us all? An empty page, an open book, nothing is written and nothing is sealed. Flesh and blood, frail creatures, our lives are fleeting and subject to chance. Yet this we possess, the strength to persist, to prevail, to comfort one another in the dark. Prayer, right action, a turning toward the good, these give us hope and help us bear the pain of life.
Uteshuva, utafir.
John 2:16, we who are mortal, our origin is dust, and so is our end. We wear out our lives to get our bread, like broken vessels, like withered grass, like a flower that must fade, a shadow moving on, a cloud passing by, mere dust on the wind, a dream that flies away. I invite you to rise for the Kedusha, our prayer of holiness, found on 218 and 220.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מורום, ככתוב הנביאך, וכרזה זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר, אדירנו, אדיר, אדירנו. אדוני, אדוני, אדוננו, מאדיר, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו,
seated. Continue on page 227, the very important prayer reading for the righteous of all nations. Our sages teach the righteous of all nations have a place in the world to come, Olam Haba. And Scripture says, "My house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. So let them be blessed, all those who pursue justice and act with compassion, those who give strength to the Jewish people and help to build our future, cherished family and friends, allies and supporters. With gratitude and love, we give them praise." Continue on 228. "You are holy, your name is awe, there is nothing divine beyond you. As the prophet Isaiah taught, the source of all might is exalted through justice, God of holiness made holy through righteousness. Baruch atah Adonai hamelech hakadosh, blessed are you Adonai, the holy sovereign." For the sanctity of this day, Kiddushat Hayom, we continue on 232. "Our God and the God of generations before us, may a memory of us ascend and come before you. May it be heard and seen by you, winning your favor and reaching your awareness. Together with the memory of our ancestors, the memory of your sacred city, Jerusalem, and the memory of your people, the family of Israel. May we be remembered for safety, well-being, and favor, for love and compassion, for life and for peace on this day of atonement. Zochrenu Adonai Eloheinu bo letovah, Fokdenu vo livracha, V'hoshienu vo lechayim. Eternal our God, remember us, be mindful of us, and redeem us for a life of goodness and blessing, as we say, Amen. On 238, words of prayer avodah. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, eternal our God, your people Israel yearns for your favor. Receive their prayer with loving acceptance. May you always desire your people's worship. Divine One, close to all who call upon you, bring your grace and presence near to those who serve you. Pour forth your Spirit on us, and may our eyes see your merciful return to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato litzion. Blessed are you whose divine presence is felt again in Zion. And on 243, you'll find a poem written by the late poetess Rachel called Tiny Joys. Tiny joys, joys like a lizard tail, a sudden sea between two city buildings in the west, windows glittering in the setting sun, everything blessed. Everything blessed, a consoling music in everything mysteries and hints, and everything waiting for chorals of beautiful words to be strung by the imagination on its string. Baruch atah Adonai hatov shimcha uchana elechodot. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose goodness deserves thanks and praise. Continue on 244, the threefold blessing of Birkat Kohanim, the priestly benediction.
Adonai, Yishmerecha, Yair Adonai, panav elecha, v'yikunecha, Yisa Adonai, panav elecha, v'yasem lecha shalom.
May God bless you and protect you. May it be so. May you receive the light of God's kindness and grace. May it be so. May God bestow favor upon you and give you peace. May it be so. Birkat Shalom, our song of peace, is found on 246.
Sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova uvracha, ve'in lachesed v'rachamim aleinu, ve'yavon yeresh lamecha, sim shalom, sim shalom.
Let us and the whole family of Israel be remembered and inscribed in the book of life, Sefer Chaim. May it be a life of goodness, blessing, and prosperity. May it be a life of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Osei HaShalom. You are the Blessed One, eternal source of shalom. Take a few moments for our own thoughts and reflections while we hear the words of Ki Elecha, because my soul longs for God.
Anim zmirot v'shirim merov, ki elecha nafshi tarov, ki nafshi tarov, nafshi chamda metyanacha, ladat korasodecha, nafshi tarov, nafshi tarov, midei dabri chevodecha, omer libi el dodecha, omer libi, omer libi,
continue now with Avinu Malkeinu, found on page 252. Please rise as the ark is opened. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu ve'al Olalenu ve'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Dever ve'cherev ve'ra'av me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Kol Tsar Umastin Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, Kotvenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, Chadash Aleinu Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, Malei Yadenu Mibrichotecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, Harem Kerem Mishichecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption. Avinu Malkeinu, Na'al Shivenu Rekam Milfanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn us away from you with nothing. Avinu Malkeinu, Kabel Barachamim Uvratzon Et Tefilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love. Accept and embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Imanu Leman Shemecha. Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Lemancha Im Lo Lemanenu. Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours. Avinu Malkeinu, Ein Lanu Melech Ela Ata. Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our sovereign. Avinu Malkeinu, Petach Sha'arei Shamayim Litfilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu, Chus v'rachem aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice, treat us with tender compassion. Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu v'anenu, ki ein banu ma'asim, aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu v'anenu, ki ein banu ma'asim, aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu, aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu v'anenu, ki ein banu ma'asim.
We remain standing for Seder Kriyat Torah, the Torah service, as we continue on page 256, 256, God's 13 attributes. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet, Notzer Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon V'Fesha V'Chata'a V'Nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, God compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving, and true, showing mercy to the 1,000th generation, forgiving evil, defiance, and wrongdoing, granting pardon.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai לך אדוני הגדולה והגבורה והתפארת והנצח וההוד כי כל בשמיים ובארץ כי כל בשמיים ובארץ לך אדוני הממלכה ולהתנשא לכל ראש על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים
Whenever I put this mask on or off, this little pea popper stopper always comes off, so I always have to put it back on. So here we are in the Torah service. It's a very good Yom Kippur morning Torah service where we are asked to choose life and blessing. The Parsha, when it occurs in its weekly portion, actually was just a couple weeks ago. Nitzavim, which means you all stand ready to accept the call and to engage with the divine and hopefully move forward in the land of Israel. This is back in the biblical day, always going from strength to strength. We'll have two readers this morning, and for the honor of the first Aliyah La Torah, it's my honor to call upon Norm Kelton, who also helped me undress the Torah and will also help dress the Torah later on in the Torah service. Yamod Yahum Nahum La Aliyah La Torah. And our first Baal Koreh is Debbie Kaplan.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bacharbanu mikol ha'amim v'notan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Atem nitzavim hayom kulhem lifnei Adonai Eloheihem rosheihem shivteihem zikneihem v'shotreihem kol ish Yisrael taphem nasheihem v'geiraha asher b'kerev mahaneha, mahotei veitzeha, ad shoev meimeha, la'avraham, bivrit, Adonai Elohecha, uvalato, asher Adonai Elohecha, koreit imha hayom, laman hakimot hayom lo leam, v'hu yiyelachach le'elohim, ka'asher diber lach, v'ha'asher nishbach la'avoteha, la'avraham liyitzhak u'leYaakov, v'lo ethem levadhem anohi, koreit et habrit hazot v'et ha'aloh hazot, ki et asher yishno po imanu omed hayom lifnei Adonai Eloheinu, v'et asher avninu po avenu. Now we need this one. I think we have to go a little bit further. Yeah, this to here is fine. Ki ha-mitzvah hazot asher anohi mitzavha hayom lo nifleit hiv mimha v'lo rohoka hiv lo vashamayim hiv lemur miyahale lanu hashamayma v'yikaheha lanu v'yishmienu ota v'ne'asena v'lo me'aver layam hiv lemur miya'avar lanu el aver hayam v'yikaheha lanu v'yishmienu ota v'ne'asena ki karov elenu adavar ma'od b'filahu v'yavavha la'asoto.
Excellent. Yasher Koach to you. Wonderful reading from the scroll.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, behaye olam natah bechotenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher Koach to you, Norm, and to Debbie for a beautiful reading of Torah.
Roll call. Leaders, tribes, elders, officers, each Israelite, and we mean each and every Israelite, babies, women, resident aliens, laborers of all sorts. Each one of you present is joining in a promise with God today. This is the same promise that Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob, Rachel, and Leah made, and all their children made. But it can't be a long ago promise alone. It has to be in your mouth, in our mouths, like a piece of candy, like running shoes on your feet. Joining God's promise itself gives you the energy to fulfill what you promised. In fact, the promise is right under your solar plexus, as steady as the beat of your heart. All you have to do is make the right choices when choices come along. If life and death come before you, choose life. If good and bad come before you, choose the good. If a blessing and a curse come before you, choose the blessing. Seek life, justice, goodness, and blessing, and your days will be filled with the pursuit of God's most precious gift, peace.
Before our second Aliyah Torah, with the Torah before us, we offer the prayer, Misha Berak, God the one who blesses. You'll find the prayer on page 273 as we think of the following individuals for healing and for strength. Yonatan Reuven ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Marcy Bunn, Lisa Cargile, Eddie Deerfield, Edie Eckber, Evelyn Edelman, Heather Felser, Harry Fleisch, Denise Freifeld, Mitchell Freifeld, Maria Yehuda Gonzalez, Jerry Gottlieb, Leah Gottlieb, Doris Harding, Priscilla Harris, Paula Hickey, Vinnie Croca, Arthur Maller, Arnold Miller, William Miller, Rabbi Avrim Rafer, Paula Rosoff, Stephanie Ross, Arlene Charlotte, Scott Spector, Jeff Stark, Mark Stouffer. We think of as well all those who are ill due to the pandemic and recovering from the latest hurricanes. And if there are other individuals you'd like to name either aloud or in your hearts here or at home, feel free to do so.
My father, George Stark.
For the honor of the second Aliyah Torah, it's my pleasure to call upon Ed and Anita Marks. Yamdu Eldred ben Gershon, Aviva bat Avraham Avinu la Aliyah la Torah. And our Bala Koreh is Ron Gilberg.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamavarach. Baruch Adonai Hamavarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamavarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bakar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Latu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Ki ha-mitzvah hazot asher anochi misavacha hayom lo neflitiv mimcha v'lo rechoka hiv lo vashamayim hiv lemor mi'alelanu hashamayma v'kechecha halanu v'ashminu ota v'nasena Lo mever layam hiv lemor mi'avar lanu elever chayam v'kechecha halanu v'yashmienu ota v'nasena ki karov elecha hadavar me'od בפיך ובלבבך לעשותו. ראה נתתי לפניך היום את החיים ואת הטוב ואת המוות ואת הרע. אשר אנוכי מצווך היום לאהבה. את אדוני אלוהיך ללכת בדרכיו, לשמור מצוותיו וחוקותיו ומשפטיו, והיית ורבית וברכך אדוני אלוהיך בארץ אשר אתה בשמה לרשת. ומפני לבבך ולא תשמע ונידעת והשתהבית לאלוהים אחרים וערבתם. הגעתי לכם היום כי עובד תאבדון, לא תחרון ימים האדמה אשר אתה עובר את הירדן לבוא שמה לרשת. הידעתי בכם היום את השמיים ואת הארץ, החיים והמוות נתתי לפניך, הברכה והקללה, וברכת בחיים למען תהיה אתה וזרעך. לאהבה את אדוני אלוהיך, לשמוע בקולו ובדרכיו, כי הוא חייך ואורך ימיך, לשבת על אדמה אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק יעקב, לתת לכם.
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nadat b'tefkenu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Asher Koach to Ed and Anita, as well as to Ron for a beautiful Torah reading. Strength to all of you. We're now going to lift the Torah and sing Vizota Torah. This is the Torah. I'll ask all of us to rise.
Vizota Torah shetzam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael. לפני בני ישראל, אבי אדוני יד משה. יא לי 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 לי
The introduction to the Haftarah, Isaiah 58, is found on page 276. Lift up your voice like the shofar, we'll read. Isaiah is called by God to address the people with a powerful sermon that will resound throughout the community as the ram's horn summoned ancient Israel to battle or sacred assembly. His words are intended to be as discordant as a shofar blast, shattering complacency and disrupting the normal ceremonies of the holy day. The prophet notes, ironically, that God pays no heed to the people's ritual acts of fasting and prostration. Their hypocritical displays of piety fall, as it were, on deaf ears. If only these rituals are accompanied by humility, generosity, and care for the needy, will God hear the worshipers and attend to their call. I am going to be chanting the Haftorah blessings that you'll find on 275, the closing blessing on page 280. Following the opening blessing, I'll ask to play the video, and Michelle Gordon has read the Haftarah, and you'll be able to see and hear that. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim, v'ratzav v'divrehem hanemarim bemet. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'Torah, u'v'Moshe avdo, u'v'Yisrael amo, u'v'nvi'ei hamet v'tzedek.
קרא בגרון, אל תחשוך כשופר, הרם קולך, והגד לעמי פישם, ולבית יעקב חטאותם. ואותי יום יום ידרשון, ודעת דרכי, יחפצון כגוי אשר צדקה עשה, ומשפט אלוהיו לא עזב. ישאלוני משפטי צדק, קרבת אלוהים יחפצון. למה צמנו ולא ראית עינינו נפשנו, ולא תדעם ביום צומכם, תמצאו חפץ, בכל עצביכם תנגושו. הן לריב ומצה תצומו, ולהכות באגרוף רשע לא תצומו, כיום להשמיע במרום קולכם. החזה יהיה צום אחריהו יום ענות, אדם נפשו, הלחוף כאדמון ראשו, בשק ואפר יציע הלזה תקרא צום ביום רצון לאדוני. הלא זה צום אחריהו, פותח חרצובות, רשע התר אגודות מותה, ושלח רצוצים חופשיים, וכל מותה תנתקו. הלא פרוס לרעב לחמך, ועניים מרדים תביא בית, כי תראה ארם וכיסיתו, ומבשרך לא תתעלם. אז יבקע כשחר אורך, וארוחתך מהרה תצמח, והלך לפניך צדקך, כבוד אדוני יאספך. אז תקרא ואדוני יענה, תשבע ויאמר, הנני, אם תסיר מתוכך מותה, שלח אצבע ודבר אבן, ותפק לרב נפשך, בנפש נענה, תשביע וזרח בחושך אורך, ואפלתך כצהריים, ונכחך אדוני תמיד, והשביע בצחצחות נפשך, ועצמותיך יחליץ, והיית כגן רבה, וכמוצא מים אשר לא יחסבו מימיו. ובנו ממך חרבות עולם, מוסדי דור ודור תקומם, וקרא לך גודר פרץ מסובב נתיבות לשבת. אם תשיב משבת רגליך, עשות חפצך ביום קודשי, וקראת לשבת עונג, לקדוש אדוני מכובד, וכיבדתו מעשות דרכך, למצוא חפצך, לדבר דבר. אז תתענג על אדוני, והרכבתיך על במובטי ארץ, וחאלתיך נחלת יעקב אביך, כי פי אדוני דיבר.
We say Yasher Koach to Michelle, and the closing Haftarah blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, sadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer v'yoseh, hamdaber u'mkayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, ala Torah v'ala avodah, v'al anvi'im v'al yom ha'kippurim hazeh, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, למנוחה ולסליחה ולכפרה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד, ודברך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מוקר וסולח לאבותינו, לעוונות עמו בית ישראל, ומרעיב אשמותינו בכל שנה ושנה, מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל, ויום הכיפורים. I'll invite Anita Marks, will be sharing an adaptation of the Isaiah passage.
It is not enough to stop eating and stop drinking on Yom Kippur. It is not enough for God. We must stop fighting and stop arguing. We must stop being selfish and stop criticizing. Then we will have truly fasted and we will have made room for God in our lives. It is an accomplishment not to eat and drink on Yom Kippur, but it is an even greater accomplishment not to argue or be unpleasant on Yom Kippur and during the rest of the year.
Thank you so much, Anita. Turning to page 291. A precious teaching I've given you, my Torah, do not forsake it. A tree of life to those who hold it fast, all who embrace it know happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, all its paths are peace. Take us back, Adonai, let us come back to you, renew in our time the days of old. We rise as the Torah is returned to the ark. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with the Vizui Zuta, the short confession found on page 296. Our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence. When we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed. We have done wrong. read together, of these wrongs we are guilty. We betray, we steal, we scorn, we act perversely, we are cruel, we scheme, we are violent, we slander, we devise evil, we lie, we ridicule, we disobey, we abuse, we defy, we corrupt, we commit crimes, we are hostile, we are stubborn, we are immoral, we kill, we spoil, we go astray, we lead others astray. Our Vidui confession continues on page 300. For these sins, our God, we ask forgiveness. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha be'ones uvratzon ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha be'yodim uvlo yodim. The ways we have wronged you under duress and by choice, and harm we have caused in your world consciously and unconsciously. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha bivli da'at ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha beritzat raglayim lahara. The ways we have wronged you through our thoughtlessness, and harm we have caused in your world through impulsive acts of malice. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha bechozek yad, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'zizul horim umorim. The ways we have wronged you by abusing our power, and harm we have caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha beyetzer hara, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha bekashyut oref. The ways we have wronged you by giving in to our hostile impulses, and harm we have caused in your world through inflexibility and stubbornness. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha bechachash uvchazav, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha bekalut rosh. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and harm we have caused in your world by making light of serious matters. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'siach svatenu, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'tzarut ayin. The ways we have wronged you in our routine conversations, and harm we have caused in your world through envy. Ve'al kulam Eloha slichot slachlanu mechalanu kaperlanu. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. Continuing on 304, Al chet shechatanu lefanecha begalui uvasater ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'sinat chinam. The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and harm we have caused in your world by hating without cause. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'frikat ol ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'ma'al u'mishteh. The ways we have wronged you by losing self-control, harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha begilui arayot, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha be'imutz halev. The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and harm we have caused in your world by hardening our hearts. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha beneshek ubmarbit, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'masav matan. The ways we have wronged you through greed and exploitation, harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty and business. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'huhur halev, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha birchilut. The ways we have wronged you through our innermost thoughts, and harm we have caused in your world through gossip and rumor. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chapat shochad, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chilul Hashem. The ways we have wronged you by offering or accepting bribes, harm we have caused in your world by profaning your name in public. Ve'al kulam Eloha slichot slachlanu mechalanu kaperlanu. And will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. Plato, Aristotle, Galileo, Maimonides, Einstein, Rashi, and Schultz, some of the greatest minds of the past 2 millennia. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, who's this guy Schultz? Certainly sounds a bit Jewish, but as it turns out, this particular Schultz wasn't Jewish at all. Rather, he's Charles M. Schultz, the man who created Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Lucy, Linus, and all their friends in the classic cartoon strip Peanuts. So how can a cartoonist join the company of the world's greatest thinkers? It's because Schultz created a comic strip that's a true treasury of wisdom, thought, and humor. Schultz was blessed with an intuitive grasp of human nature. He had an uncanny ability to condense profound concepts into just a few cartoon cells or frames. And if it's true that a picture is worth 1,000 words, Schultz has written more than many of the world's most prolific authors. By any standard, Peanuts is the most popular and influential comic strip in history, published every Sunday for 50 years, from 1950 to 2000, making it probably one of the longest stories ever told by a single human being. You can find reprints in just about every newspaper, and the comics are readily available online. Now, one of the keys to Schultz's success was his ability to make each and every Peanuts character relevant and relatable. But his lovable characters do much more than just make us laugh. They teach us valuable life lessons, such as the importance of living life in the present, how to manage change and transitions, and how to find a sense of balance in our lives. All of us have our favorite characters. For some, it might be the happy-go-lucky Woodstock, that bird, always game for whatever Snoopy wanted to do. For others, it's the wry and biting humor of Lucy, dispensing sage advice for the modest price of 5 cents a session. Some of us might resonate with the kindness and tenderness of Linus, while others appreciate the dignified wisdom of Snoopy, because after all, not every beagle can speak or type eloquently. Personally, I've always been drawn to Charlie Brown, and not just because of his brash sense of style with that trademark zigzag shirt in yellow. I like Charlie Brown because he gives it his all each and every time. He really wants to kick the football Lucy is holding with every single fiber of his being. He's humble, he's friendly, he's considerate, and he's a philosopher at heart. He's always concerned with the meaning of life, even if his friends call him a blockhead now and then. And while Charlie Brown doesn't always learn from his experiences, I think that his approach to life can teach us volumes about the human heart and spirit. Because regardless of the odds, he always gets back on his feet, no matter how many times Lucy swipes the football just as he tries to kick it. I first learned about the idea of connecting Peanuts to Jewish themes due to the work of the late Rabbi Dr. Abraham Twersky, who died earlier this year in January in Israel. He was a practicing psychologist, a rabbi, and an author of many books. He worked with veterans suffering with addiction issues and PTSD. But he found that not every veteran was open and forthcoming about their personal experiences. So after watching one of his patients look through some Peanuts cartoons that he left around the office, Rabbi Twersky found that he could relate psychological concepts and ideas and create connections through the comics themselves, which was quite brilliant. In a similar way, I think that we can relate the wisdom of Peanuts to the essential themes and work of the High Holy Days, because its characters approach life with a can-do attitude and a willingness to try and do better. They acknowledge when they fell short, They were thankful for life's blessings, and they were open to reorienting themselves, just like our friend Charlie Brown. You may recall that Charlie Brown was the manager of a baseball team. As a player and as a coach, he was bad. The team's record was even worse. In fact, over the course of 50 years, Charlie's team never won more than a few games in all that time. To be sure, one of the stumbling blocks to victory was Lucy's fielding. In one cartoon, Lucy walks to her position way out in right field. All the while, she's muttering to herself, "We're never going to win a game." After getting into position, she continues on with her rant. "We're going to lose every single game we play for the rest of our lives." All the while, the game is underway, and a pop fly is heading in her direction. The next image in the cartoon features Lucy looking up with her glove held high, open to the sky. A few feet behind her, the ball bounces off the grass with a bonk. She was never going to win a Golden Glove anyway. The cartoon ends with Lucy back at the mound, tossing the game ball to Charlie, who is pitching. Charlie cries, "Lucy, how did you miss that ball?" as he confronts yet another defeat. Lucy's reply, "Sorry, manager, the past got in my eyes." In a different game, a similar scenario unfolds. This time, Lucy is daydreaming in right field when a fly ball comes her way. Of course, the result is the same. This time, the ball drops right in front of her. Again, she goes back to the mound and tosses Charlie the game ball. Yet this time, when Charlie asks, "How did you miss that ball?" Lucy answers, "Sorry, manager, the future got in my eyes." In our lives, Lucy's twin excuses may well hit home. At times, we have the past in our eyes, which can be a good thing, especially if we're remembering a great experience or thinking about ways in which our lives have improved. Maybe we've been blessed with a child or a grandchild. Maybe we've learned a new skill or taken steps that have improved our health. At the same time, we may find ourselves thinking too much about the past. Just think of all the times that the Israelites fetched and complained during their 40 years in the wilderness. What did it really get them except for a reputation for being stiff-necked? To be sure, when we look inward and find that we did something wrong, we should feel sorry and apologize. If teshuvah or repentance is called for, we should go ahead and do it. And if we're faced with a similar situation in the future, we need to try to avoid repeating the mistake. But then we need to go on with living, because beyond learning from our mistakes and making amends, there's not much purpose dwelling on them. Otherwise, we get stuck in the past. When it comes to looking ahead, curiosity about the future is universal. It can be helpful when it comes to achieving our goals or enhancing our productivity. It feels good when we think about upcoming events or simchas that will bring us pleasure. But as many of us know, there are downsides when we focus too much on the future. For example, if we constantly worry about it, we'll use up a lot of the energy that we need to live fully in the present. Every one of us thinks about the past. Every one of us visualizes the future on a regular basis. The key is finding a sense of balance in our lives, because this sense of balance can help us navigate the changes and challenges of life's journey. There's a very powerful teaching about managing transitions that relates to Lucy's clumsy feeling, her interactions with Charlie Brown, and her explanation of seeing the past and the future in her eyes. William Bridges, who's an expert in organizational change, explains that with every significant change in our lives, we go through 3 phases of transition. The first, letting go. The second, living in the neutral zone. And finally, embracing a new beginning. And at different times, we may find ourselves in one or more of these transitional phases. Bridges teaches that it's important to note there's a difference between change and transition. Change, he says, is situational. A player is switched from right field to center field. We move from one house to another. We start a new school year in a new grade. We can mark the exact time the change happens, and we can note how we feel emotionally in those moments. On the other hand, transitions are psychological. They're a journey, a process that we go through when we come to terms with the reality of change. Rather than a single moment, we manage transitions over time. This is essential work because in order for us to cope with significant changes, we need to look inward, learn, and grow. In the first Peanuts cartoon that I shared, Lucy laments her team's ability to win a game. In doing so, she's distracted and misses the fly ball completely. The past got in her eyes, and she couldn't let go because she had trouble accepting the reality of losing game after game. Whenever we deal with loss, it's essential for us to express how we feel. Take, for example, the ways in which we're dealing individually and collectively with the realities of pandemic life. All of us can agree that since March 2020, things have absolutely changed. People started working from home, students started learning from home, thousands of businesses went under, and we had to wear masks everywhere we went, and for the most part, we still do. It's natural for us to be sad, angry, frustrated, or confused by these changes because things are so different. As an example, think about how different the last 2 years have felt during the High Holy Days. Personally, I'm used to having more than a dozen people in the sanctuary, and I know you are too. This is why I've really tried to listen to people when they share how they're feeling about these changes. Because during any transition, it's important for us to show empathy and to try and understand what people are saying. We need to draw upon our strength to lift people's spirits when they're struggling. Letting go of what was takes time because we need to experience what we feel. Hopefully, at one point, we'll find the courage to ask, are there any possibilities for blessing and meaning, silver linings in this new reality we're finding ourselves in? To be sure, no one wanted these changes, but given its reality, perhaps we need to challenge ourselves to reflect, refocus, and retool. The second phase of dealing with change or transition is living in the neutral zone. This is a transitional time in which we're suspended between what was and what will be. It's precisely where we find ourselves this moment. The author Marilyn Ferguson describes it well. It's not so much that we're afraid of change or so in love with the old ways, but it's that place in between that we fear. It's like being in between trapezes. It's like Linus when his blanket is in the dryer. There's nothing to hold on to. Like the Israelites in the desert, this is our exodus, our time in the wilderness. If it didn't take too long of a time, we could just wait for it to end. But when a change is far-reaching, the time between the old and the new can take many months, or in the case of the pandemic, at least a year and a half. During this time, it's so important to rely on our faith in God, our faith in science and medicine, our faith in people. We need to keep up to date with accurate and current medical information. We need to make common sense health choices for ourselves and our family. Or to put it another way, we need to hope that once we let go of the trapeze, a new one will eventually appear. A leap of faith. Any change in our lives will bring along with it its sense of challenges. At the same time, there are oases in the desert. Do you remember that 2-month period, that reprieve in late spring when things were really looking up. There were lower case numbers. It was considered safe for people who are vaccinated to wear their masks less while in public. Sadly, things took a turn for the worse. And with the Delta variant, we're back to masking indoors and experiencing, yet again, High Holy Day services online. At a certain point, God willing, sooner rather than later, we'll turn a corner. But until then, we need to cultivate both spiritual strength and a positive attitude. Lastly, there will be a new beginning. Like any organic process, this last phase in our journey of transition will happen according to its own schedule. Yet as sure as flowers appear in the spring and leaves turn in the autumn, at least up north, we'll find our sense of balance and become comfortable with our new reality. It will come. We just don't have a timetable on it yet. Until then, we need to hold on like Linus, be there for each other, and maintain hope that things will get better. Every transition begins with a moment of change. The first day we go to school, things change. The first day we arrive at a new job, things change. The first day parents arrive home with a new baby, things definitely change. Yet the process of finding comfort, familiarity, and success in our new reality, that's a journey of transition that can take quite some time. Year after year, the message of the High Holy Days rings true. There is always hope. There are always new opportunities. There are new beginnings. And there's always the possibility to renew and reorient ourselves. All we need is, like Charlie Brown, a positive attitude and a willingness to try. Charlie Brown tries with every fiber in his being to kick that football that Lucy's holding, to manage his baseball team, to be a good friend, and for the romantics among us to win the heart of that little red-headed girl. Shana Tova. Shifting gears, I'd like to briefly talk to you about legacy giving at Temple Ahavat Shalom. Throughout the High Holy Day season, we're asked to reflect and look inward. It's a time to think about what's important to us, family, friends, the Jewish community, and Jewish organizations such as TAS that are making a difference. Here we've established a very easy yet meaningful way for you to make a difference, to create a legacy and ensure that our holy synagogue thrives for generations to come. It's called the Rabbi Klein Lidor Vador Endowment Fund. A small part of the fund's income will be used each year for temple needs. The principle of the fund is wisely invested to be a sustained source of income for our synagogue. We welcome any gifts now. This is future money, not money right now. We welcome any gifts as well as commitments for future gifts to ensure the long-term financial health of TAS. A gift to the Temple's Endowment Fund will convey to your family and community your commitment to Jewish life, express cherished values instilled by your parents and grandparents, ensure that Jewish traditions will continue, and preserve the unique and special qualities of our TAS community, establishing a legacy to your good name. In Jewish terms, we call that a Shem Tov. This new year, I invite you to become a legacy member of our synagogue, providing a source of strength for the future. Feel free to call the temple office for any additional information or sharing your interest. And I'd also like to speak about, it's the same idea, the Jewish Future Pledge. I'm going to share a video with you on the screen about a worldwide philanthropic initiative brought to us by Top Jewish Foundation, Tampa Orlando Pinellas, and the Gulf Coast Jewish Federation. This is called the Jewish Future Pledge.
We are the heirs of the most influential people the world has ever known. Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest lawgiver in the history of humankind, the descendants of David HaMelech, the greatest religious poet in all of history. The world's first social critics, the first people to speak truth to power. Jews innovate in every single generation, and every one of them maintained that essential Jewish idea that you change the world not by the idea of power, but by the power of ideas.
And that's what Judaism is, that remarkable algorithm that turns Jews into the most resilient, creative, transformative, fate-defying people the world has ever known. Our Jewish story of survival and success is a miracle, and none of it happened by coincidence. If we don't think about the Jewish future now, who will? More and more young people are walking away from Judaism. Jewish organizations are struggling to raise funds and attract the next generation of donors. We must continue to strengthen the bond between Israel and North America.
The good news is that there is something we can do. We have an historic opportunity to write the next chapter of the Jewish story.
Over the next 25 years, an estimated $68 trillion will transfer to the next generation in North America. $6.3 trillion will be allocated to charity. We believe about 20% of that money will be given by Jewish donors. This means that over $1 trillion will be directed to charity by Jewish donors.
But what charities will get this money? We must ensure that a significant percentage of these resources are committed to the Jewish future.
That's the Jewish Future Pledge. It calls on all Jews to pledge that 50% or more of the charitable giving in their estate will support the Jewish people or the State of Israel. That's more than $600 billion. Signing this pledge sends a powerful message to your family, your friends, and future generations about the importance of sustaining the Jewish people. Tell them why the Jewish future matters to you. Sharing your story is the greatest gift you can give. Each of us must do our part.
Together, we must secure the Jewish future.
And we sign.
I am A.J. Rosemary, and I sign the Jewish Future Pledge.
A few brief announcements before we continue. Many thanks to Allison, to Lowell, and I think I forgot to mention you, Tim Burnham, in the beginning. I was so busy talking about Lowell's 37 years that I just got lost in the whole bit, so thank you so much, Tim Burnham. You don't see him for those of you watching at home, but Tim is awesome, and he is here. Wanted to thank Mike and Nicole Skalk, our tech crew, and our sound engineer, Mike Abdisi. Live stream of the family service. This is the tot age pre-K to second grade service that our educator, Tammy Wolf, and I will be leading. That live stream starts at 1:30 p.m. with a visit from my puppet friend, Rabbi Love. The Zoom Yom Kippur afternoon tech study that I'll be leading begins at 2:30 p.m. That's on the Yom Kippur Torah that we just read, Choose Life and Blessing. Live stream of our Yizkor Memorial Service begins at 4:30, and a separate live stream will begin for our Ne'ilah concluding service, which begins at 5:30. So one stream will end at the end of Yizkor, and then you'll click on the other. I'm looking at the people in the sanctuary. You'll click on the other one at 5:30. We're going to continue with a reading. Last night, many of you heard my message about recognizing the good, and there's a prayer on page 312 which speaks to this, called Hakarat HaTov. Throughout the year, regard yourselves as equally balanced between merit and sin. With one act, you can tip the balance for yourself and for the world. Every good deed makes a difference. And so it is written, a tzaddik, a righteous person, is the foundation of the world, for one who does good tips the balance of the scales and can save the world. Shema Kolenu, hear our call and our voice. is found on 316. Please join me on page 317. Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu, hear our call, Adonai Eloheinu, and may we hear yours in our apologies and confessions, in the meditations of our heart, in the accountings of our soul. Hear our call, and may we hear yours in words of counsel and consolation, in the silence of one who listens, in the strength of a hand that upholds. Hear our call, Adonai Eloheinu, as we strive to hear yours on this day of the heart, this day of repair and healing. Concluding song of the morning service is found on page 318.
Hayom, 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 hayom t'amseinu, amen. Hayom, 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 hayom.
Strengthen us this day, bless us this day. This day exalt us, show us kindness on this day. Inscribe us this day for a life of goodness. This day hear our cry, now and always. Support us with the strength of your righteousness. Amen. And our prayer for health and well-being, wearing a mask. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher Kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh, for the mitzvah to protect our lives and the lives of our loved ones and our community. We say together, Amen.